it really does make a difference with the amount of time that passes within a year. Like, because I remember last year around this time, I would say all of 2017 was probably the most miserable year of my life, and I kept a journal recording my thoughts every single night before I went to bed. I would just write down what I was thinking, what I was feeling that day, as honestly as possible. And some of the shit that I wrote is kind of, I'm embarrassed to even think it, but I was completely overtaken by the emotion, and it was never shared with anybody else. And I don't think I would ever share it with anybody, but last night I was just writing, and, you know, I wrote about basic things of the day. I was just like, yeah, here's what I did. I took my car in and I watched a movie, and it was pretty overall positive. And then I read the same entry last year at that date, and it was a lot more miserable, and I was so fucking miserable. But the thing is at least now I'm trying to be happy, and I think it's because I see a lot more shit in the future, and I'm just really hoping that shit works out, and it's not as bleak, but it's crazy, like, once you've been to the lowest of lows, you know, and then you can just come out and it totally works fine. But the thing is, people usually don't get to that place, or it takes them a long time or a completely random event, and there's just no happiness or contentness, like, within them. And I totally understand, and I can't say that I'm 100% happy, but I will say is that I'm not in the darkness anymore, and, you know, I'm at least content with things the way they are now. So this is Coffee and Catastrophe with Brent and Gabi. Oh boy, those are some sad pets, man. Like, especially like those commercials, like the In the Arms of an Angel, like the
ASPCA or the Humane Society.
Yeah, there's a new trailer for Lita Battle Angel. I don't know, I can't remember. It's the new James Cameron one, but there was a remake of that song.
Oh my god,
and,
really?
Yeah, and it's like a sci-fi movie, but I'm thinking about the fucking dogs the whole time.
You're just thinking about the poor shaking mutt out in the cold. They're, especially in the wintertime, their whole focus is on how the pets are, like, left outside for, like, very long periods of time, and they're freezing. Just makes me want to die. It's super sad. Super fucking sad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. We fucking love dogs so much, and they're, you know, just pretty much a reflection on us, you know, because they make us happy.
I agree. Last March, we found out that my brother's dog, who lives with my parents, with my mom, he's now just turned 12. And in March of last year, we found out that he had liver cancer. And they told us, like, he's got anywhere from, like, 3 months to a year to live. And he's still kicking strong after 9 or 10 months. So, but one of the things that really impacted my happiness at that time was the feeling of, like, potentially losing him, because while he's not necessarily like an overly explicitly happy dog, he's really calm and chill. But having that calm, chilling presence brought so much joy and happiness to my life, because the reason we love dogs is because they give unconditional love, and that makes us happy. Wouldn't you say that feeling loved makes one happy?
Yeah, I would also, you have to feel it though, because there's a lot of people like who do love you, but they might not love you in the way that you want to feel when you are feeling desperate.
Unpack that for me.
Okay, so for instance, let's like when I was in the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
You know, my mom, my dad, even like my brother, and you know, a few friends, like, they've expressed, like, their love for me. But at the time, I was like, yeah, they're just saying it. You know, like, there wasn't, like, the one...
I mean, like, I'm in the hospital. They have to say that.
Yeah, I mean, like, looking back on it now, I feel that, and I really understand it and believe it. But even when I was in my most darkest moments last year, I would reach out to a few friends, and then they would say, yeah, I love you, man. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. You know, so, you know, but I know they genuinely feel it, but it's hard because it's only communicated through words. You know, it's hard to, like, take a plug or, like, a hose and then just put that in your head and be like, here, Brent, boop, and then just plug it into my head. Here's my love. And then you feel like, oh, my God, it's like a drug, you know. But you really have to have that self-consciousness and self-awareness to really feel it. And you have to – it really is a fucking feeling, too, man. It's like you could rationalize, you know, the thought, but if the feeling's not there, that you're just kind of – it's like saying like what being on a roller coaster is like. You could say like, well, it's like to someone who hasn't been on a roller coaster, and maybe describing color to somebody who's blind.
In that it's like a sensation that cannot be entangled in words or can't be bound by words. There's something beyond that. And that's what happiness is.
Yeah.
And I was just trying to think of all the different things that can make one happy. So we just hit on like love or attention from other people, positive attention, I should say. And when I found out my dog had cancer, it was like this big existential moment where I was in the middle of finishing my master's degree, finishing student teaching, and I got to this space where I was like, none of that shit matters. None of it matters. What matters is love. And what matters is like finding love and pursuing it, and not just romantic love, but familial love, and things that make me happy. And what made me happy at the time was spending time with my dog and doing yoga. So in addition to attention, I can say like there's like activities you do that make you happy. Like I even have like a physiological response, and I think a lot of people who exercise do. Like it just boosts the happy chemicals in your brain, and it makes you feel a lot happier. And I mean sex releases happy chemicals in your brain, drugs release happy chemicals in your brain, but I was about to say I don't do drugs, I don't have sex. I don't do drugs, but yes.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying.
But I buy a lot of stupid shit, so that's kind of like on another... I bought so much stupid shit, it ruined my life. So that's kind of how happiness is. But I think happiness in general is kind of more of a long-term understanding and contentment with the present and the foreseeable future. Whereas, like, when you buy shit, like, I have to buy this fucking video game. In the moment, like, I'm happy, and then, like, even when I get it, I would just put it on my shelf. I wouldn't even play it. So, but then what happens after that? You got to buy something else. So I think that, like, there's a lot of little distractions that aren't necessarily happiness, but they trick your brain into thinking it is happiness.
I totally agree. And I think we might have talked about this in an earlier episode, but Russell Brand was talking about the reason addiction comes out of a capitalist system is it's saying like you have to consume to be happy, like take this drug or eat this food or have this product, have this experience, and once you consume it, that'll make you happy. And he's saying it was an expression of like capitalism. That's where it's coming from, but it's inherently unfulfilling because, as we just said, like, you know, you'll buy one thing and then that you consume that or whatever experience you have with it is over, then you're moving on to the next thing. And so that's where like addiction, he was saying, kind of can be fed off of. So I think that you touched on something about like happiness or contentment. And at the moment it sounded like you think happiness and contentness are the same thing. Do you think that happiness and contentness are the same thing?
Not necessarily, because I know people who are, I mean, the way I worded that made it seem so, and let me take that back. Contentment means, okay, I'm okay with what I have now. It could be better, it could be worse, but I'm cool just riding this out. That doesn't necessarily mean happiness, but I think that in order to be happy, there has to be a layer of contentness. Yeah,
I agree, because happiness to me seems like a very like, the word active is coming to my mind. It's very like up. Like when you are happy, you are actively like up in emotion or feeling. Whereas content to me, like a connotation of like calm, again, content, like you're happy or you're fine where you're at, but you're not actively like in this up state, this up emotional state or something like that. When I was 16, I saw the documentary Inquiring Nuns by Cardam Quinn, which was made in the 1960s in Chicago, where two nuns went around to 4 different locations on the north and south side of Chicago and stopped and asked people, "Are you happy?" and just recorded the responses. And my film club and I saw that, and the sponsor at the time thought like, well, wouldn't it be really cool? This film came out 40 years ago. What if we made a response to it, like happiness 40 years later, and we'll go back to the 4 locations and we'll ask people, "Are you happy?" And we did it, and it was probably the most amazing thing that came out of my high school experience. Like, I remember it changed me so much. We interviewed everyone that we came across, homeless people. We met so many different types of people. I mean, homeless people, churchgoers, people new to the country, immigrants, just, oh my goodness, what are they called? Seminary students, just a breadth of different people and like hearing them talk about it. And one of the things that people would bring up was like, I don't think I'm really happy, but I think I'm content with where I'm at. And I think that while I don't think you should ever settle for where you are in your life, like I think shooting for content is good. But maybe are you okay living your life just being content?
No.
Okay. Why?
Because at least with content, I think content has maybe a safety net to it.
I agree. Yeah, it doesn't really push you.
Yeah, so if you're like right now, I'm content with both of my jobs, meaning like I work 2 jobs. I'm going to be making some decent money once I go back to work after I'm recovering from my surgery, and I'm going to be okay. It's not what I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
Like, because at least like, with like my dreams and shit, I could see myself like constantly creating, but I'm essentially just working at 2 jobs where I go there, I do my time, and then I clock out. But I'm content, meaning like I worked in retail and I wanted to fucking kill myself. So I don't work.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, and I don't work there anymore. And I work at a warehouse and at a college. So I'm content with just working those 2 jobs. One of them is like mentally laborious, and the other is definitely like break your back physical pain. Depending on like the day and the demand. But yeah, because contentness, you just have a safety net, meaning like you can't get any worse so long as you maintain what you're going on now. And I think happiness is just like an extreme positive emotion. I don't really see high positive emotion with contentness. Maybe like just enough to get by, like the bare minimum, or like average, like a 5 out of a 10 kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think we're not meant to be happy all the time, because I think if you were at that elevated state of happiness at all times, it wouldn't mean anything. It'd be absolutely meaningless. So it's probably good that happiness comes with sadness. It's good that we experience both in our lives, because otherwise it would mean nothing if we were happy all the time. Now, the real question is that if you recognize that you're content and not happy, does the average person actively pursue happiness, or do they fall prey to kind of like the sense of security that contentness offers, and it kind of lulls them into not maybe pushing themselves or not pursuing people? What do you think the average person is more likely to do?
The most average person, I would say, doesn't give a shit. And that's kind of how the way society is, where they get to the point where like maybe they're doing the bare minimum, and not to say excel, but to where they're not doing any harm, but they're not doing anything great, but they're okay because at least they're relaxing. Like they'll work an 8-hour shift. They'll come home, they'll drink a beer, they'll watch Netflix or whatever it is. And then they're like totally like cool with that. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think in general, most people just aren't happy or living like the full potential of themselves.
Yeah, and I think that has a lot to do with like the construction of our society and how people spend their days, like especially in our American society and culture, where happiness oftentimes is sold to us is in your work, which but that being said, I think of all the people in my life who are working, and very few of them are happy in their job. Maybe they're content because it brings them a certain amount of income to keep them comfortable, buy the things they want to buy, experience the things they want to experience, but they're not happy. They're not doing something every day that makes them happy. And again, I don't think there's a job out there that could make you happy every single day. But at the end of the day, I just feel like you have to push yourself to like be happy. And like maybe work isn't that place. Maybe happiness really does only come from intercommunication relationships, being with people, interpeople relationships and stuff like that. I keep coming back to that. Is there another source of happiness you can think of?
I like just in our conversation now, I'm thinking that there's temporary happiness and then there's long-term happiness,
like fleeting happiness.
Yeah, so like one night stands, or
happiness.
Yeah, or drugs. I mean, like some with certain drugs, like you get so happy right away that like when you don't have it, like your body, like you get fucking angry. Like sometimes like the withdrawals are so bad you kill people.
Well, think about like MDMA. It literally dumps all the happy chemicals out of your brain, and if you if you take it enough and make it like a habitual, really habitual thing, eventually your body will stop releasing and producing the happy chemicals on its own. It will become reliant on the drug to spill them and whatnot.
Yeah. You know, there's got to be some sort of breakdown. Like, definitely positive emotion is one of it. And also your application of your values. So there's some people who you talk to they're not happy because of their job. But then there's some people who are like, I love my job, and they don't think anything beyond that. Or let's just say there's some people who don't work, and maybe they're a stay-at-home mom or dad, and they just spend time raising their kids, and then that's what makes them happy. Or
I would argue that's their work. Their labor is labor of love and creating homes and raising children.
Yeah, or let's just say, like, with those people, like, if they're artists, you know, like, they're at least they're creating as well.
Yeah.
You know, especially, like, if you are an artist, like, you have to find a way to monetize your creations.
Yeah, although I don't think a lot of artists are ever, like, truly happy with what they've done. Because I think with being an artist, you're also oftentimes a perfectionist, and sometimes they know how to turn it on, and other times they turn it off. But I think all artists probably just reach a place of content. Like, all right, I'm satisfied with this album, or I'm satisfied with a series of paintings. I'm done, walking away. I'm content with them. But I think few people are actually happy with their work that they create.
So do you think that you have to get to contentness? So for instance, let's just say that you're trying to, let's just say make art. You're just like, you know, I've really tried this and it's just not working, so I'm content now. Do you think perhaps, you know, being content comes with a certain amount of just giving in or giving up or some, like, because you couldn't necessarily start out anything as the first time and be content. I just wonder, like, is contentness a process that is based off of, like, perhaps failure or not living up to certain expectations, or just kind of giving in, or maybe really understanding, like, okay, hey, maybe when I was young, maybe making movies wasn't the right move, but I'm content with not doing that now. But I had to go to film school. I had to do this, and I had to, like, kind of just not take initiative to pursue it any further, but I'm content, you know, with whatever. It's like, do you think that contentness is based off of, like, you know, like I said, like, kind of, you know, just surrender?
Oh, that's big. Yeah, I think to a certain extent, because what we were talking about with, you know, if you're trying to pursue happiness, contentness has a safety net. It doesn't push you. It kind of lulls you into that false sense of security. So I think at a certain point, yeah, you're just surrendering to the moment, to where you are, and you decide this is enough for now. I think that's big with content, is you decide in this moment, this is enough. And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that. I think there's some people who take happiness out of this is enough. And maybe those people, maybe the people who make contentness their happiness, maybe, like, they've got the secret. You know what I mean? Because if you're trusting that everything is as it should be, if you are surrendering to the moment and saying, this is all right for now, and finding the happiness within what you have, I think maybe that's the secret. But then again, like, are you just, like, pacifying yourself and you're not pushing yourself to grow? If you say, I'm fine for the moment, are you not pushing yourself to grow? Yeah.
You know, I'm also wondering, like, does fulfillment play part in either of them? Definitely with happiness. I think if you are happy, if you do feel fulfilled, but do you feel fulfilled if you're content?
Oh, and again, because there's that security net feeling and of surrender to the moment, I don't know if fulfillment can come from that. If you're a person that feels fulfilled by a content situation, then yes. But I think fulfillment is different for everyone, right?
It has to be. Yeah, because I'm not fulfilled by certain things that other people are fulfilled by.
True.
Like being around large groups of people.
Oh, yeah. Like, or, you know, I mean, the very obvious, like, example of this is, like, some people like smoking pot. That makes them feel not fulfilled, makes them feel good or happy or whatever. It's like the same analogous thing. Or, like, I don't feel fulfilled by going out and having a night of drinking. Like, that doesn't do anything for me. But me sitting down, reading a good book, watching documentaries or TV or listening to podcasts, that's what's fulfilling for me. Do you think it has a lot to do with, like, introversion versus extroversion?
It could be. Because at least with me, like, my fulfillment is it's tied into my unwinding at the end of the day. Like, from 8 p.m. to midnight, if I'm home, that is my time. And I always feel more fulfilled if I am watching a movie than playing a video game.
Interesting. Why is that?
I don't know, because it might be some sort of social pressure. So, for instance, if like yesterday, I played Skyrim for a few hours, and then I closed the night out by watching this movie called Your Name. It's a Japanese anime, came out last year. You know, it's a pretty good movie, and even on like this past week, Tuesday, I saw 4 movies in one day. Mm-hmm. And I could say that and not be a piece of shit. So, like, okay, so 4 movies, that was probably, so I saw Insidious 4, Star Wars, The Last Jedi, I saw It, and Split. So that's at least over almost 9 hours of my day.
Did you go to the movies?
I went to 2 in the morning. I did 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and then when I came home, I closed out the night with It and Split.
Damn.
But the thing is, I think it's because that's considered art. So if I said I spent a whole day reading a book, they're like, oh, that's fulfilling or that's cool. But if I'm playing Skyrim, like selling, like I'm like selling potions that I made to buy the smithing materials to craft the iron daggers to get my smithing level up, they're just like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
So you're saying that there's like socially acceptable ways of fulfillment, and video games is not that yet. And I say yet purposefully.
Right. You know, because like video games are an art form. It's just, I think it's evolved so fast because when I was a kid, I mean, I grew up, my first video game system was a Sega Master System.
I don't even know what that looks like.
Yeah. Like, think of a Nintendo controller without a pause and select button. You literally had to go up to the console to press pause.
Oh my God, you had to get up out of your seat? What?
Yeah. But when I played Wonder Boy 3 Dragon's Trap, like, I was like, fuck, this is amazing. You know, and there's a certain escapism within video games, but I'm not fulfilled. Well, some games, like when I played this one game called Braid, which is about relationships. But it's done through, like, the gameplay is like a regular Mario, like where it's a 2D side scroller, you jump and shit, but you manipulate time.
Ooh.
But when you manipulate time, it all has to do with the story. So, for instance, like, he's feeling regret, and he wants to go back in time to fix it, so the level is broken up to where you have to reverse time to go to the next level.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean.
Yeah, so, like, there's really, like, artful games. And last year, I spent 100 hours, like, over the course of, like, 7 months playing Persona 5, and with that game, you literally, it's very Jungian, where you put on masks to go into battle, and like they're like your social masks. So like, for instance, like there's this one character who's like a rebel, you know, like the society's telling her what to do. Or there's this one girl who's like the goody two shoes, and then when she goes into battle, she's on a fucking motorcycle and she's got like a skull mask, and you go into people's minds to change the darkness of them. So like the first mission in the game, you're in a high school setting, and you play high school students, and the gym teacher is raping students and abusing them.
Oh my God.
So you put on your mask and you go into his psyche, and it's called a palace. So it's like all of this shit. Like you go into like the deep darkest parts of his mind, and it's just the school is a gigantic castle, and he's the king.
Oh my God.
And then like throughout the like walls, there's just these pictures of just like these girls like posed provocatively. And you know, like it's brilliant. But the thing is, I have to describe that for people to be like, oh, actually, that sounds like a pretty cool game.
That's true. Like you can't just like take it at your word of like, oh yeah, I invested 100 hours into Persona 5, and then someone somewhere is rolling their eyes and like, oh my God, it's just a stupid video game. But no, there's like there's a lot you can take out of. There's some really artful games out there. One of my friends is super into Knights of the Old Republic and Star Wars, and he sent me this video about like the philosophy behind one of these characters. Actually, I think she's from Knights of the Old Republic too, but how she's like the gray Jedi, and she kind of exposes the holes in both the Sith and Jedi philosophy. And then this person in this video was applying like contemporary philosophy to her and analyzing her, and it was really cool. And I think that for how much work goes into a video game, it's a literal playable work of art. It's the modern choose your own adventure novel. I think the video games don't get enough credit in that regard. That being said, though, I do have a question. So, like, films and video games. Some people will argue that those are distractions from happiness. That it's, again, one of those, like, consuming moments where you're taking this in. Even though we both agree they're art, some people tell you it's still a distraction. If it's still a distraction, if we take on that premise, then what is supposed to make you fulfilled and happy if we do away with art?
It's a very good question. So I think it comes down to maybe our culture's purpose. So like the work model, where there's people who just have a job title like, oh yeah, well, I'm a CEO of this company. And it's like, all right, how do you feel about that? Yeah, I make $100,000 a year. All right. Do you like it? Yeah, it's okay.
And then if you ask them, why is it okay? They'll probably say, well, I make $100,000 doing it.
Yeah, it's like cyclical reasoning or arguing. I can't remember the term for it, or circular reasoning.
Circular.
Yeah, because a lot of the culture's values is based on performance.
Yes,
like
work.
Yeah. So not only do you have to be working, you have to be doing something that's like maybe that gets you some money. Or when you go home, like if you're a man, like there's certain gender roles, like you have to behave this way. If you're a woman, you have to behave that way. So
yeah, I think definitely to women, the idea that having children will make you happy and fulfilled, that is totally sold. And it's still so prevalent in our culture. A friend of mine shared a Facebook article about how like not having children is a valid choice. And there was so much arguing over it. And like the amount of times people will find out that she's choosing not to have children, and they'll be like, you don't know happiness, you don't know love until you have a child, you don't understand. And she's like, I don't want that. I'm happy. She's happy and fulfilled without children. And for the people who've internalized that happiness is having children, it's nonsensical, it's crazy, it's almost like earth shattering. And the worst part about it is when they use it against the person. Like, I have the key to happiness. It's having children. You choosing not to have children means I get to degrade you.
Yeah. And honestly, the people who don't want children should not have children. Like that's...
They've decided.
Yeah. Like if it was anything else, like if you were like, I really don't want to eat this fucking pizza. Why should they eat the pizza? Or if like, I don't want to go to the movies, like, or if I don't want to go to school,
there's differences.
Not like a second grader, like, oh, I want to go to school, I want to have fun, but like, I want to go to college, because more than likely, if you don't want to do something, you're not going to excel doing it despite the fact. If
your mind is made up that you don't want that, you're not going to be happy doing it. You sure as shit shouldn't be doing it.
No, I mean, there's some parents who do want kids and then they turn out to be like the worst parents, but then there's some parents who, there was maybe a woman who got pregnant and didn't want kids, but now they have the kid. They're just a decent person and they can make it work, but I just don't think that people should be able to do what they don't do. Now, I know one day I do want kids because I would just love to just, raise people and just like have that family time and just like like going to playgrounds and just like that's just that real interaction with the kids. But I just know that would work for me.
Do you think that to be happy, do you think you have to have kids, like for you personally?
No, like for me, my own happiness is to use my voice in a way creatively that creates some sort of change and is monetized in a way to where I don't have to work at a college or a warehouse to make ends meet. So like, for instance, like I can build a home only using my voice as the means to raise the money.
That's really poetic.
Yeah, that's because that's my ultimate thing. I mean, I really want kids. I'm not out in the world trying to impregnate, every hole I see, but I know I would be, it would just be really cool.
Yeah.
Like I will say, like when I went to college, like I knew if I didn't, I would have regretted it down the line, only because I really wanted it.
Yeah.
And I understand the societal pressure, but like some of my friends have had kids and, you play with them and it's just cool. Like they're just, because you can have fun. And especially like with my personality, like I can talk into a funny voice the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's like awesome. They're not like, why are you talking like that?
You're like comedy gold perpetually.
God, dude, like my friend's got a kid. He's 1 now. And he's got like all these blocks and shit, and I can't really judge him based on adult standards, because like he'll just like he goes around and he kisses babies and then he bites them.
What?
Yeah. He'll kiss a baby on the head and then he'll
bite the baby on the head?
Bite the baby's arm.
Okay.
And then he walks around with like a little a Halloween pail that has a empty water bottle in it and a remote. And he'll freak the fuck out if he doesn't have. And it's an old like Goodwill remote too. So I can't. It's not like he's one. So, but it's
Are you saying he takes happiness and fulfillment from the remote?
That kid is so I've never seen anyone happier. Like when he's just walking around, like sometimes like he'll just like scream so loud in pure joy. Like ah! Like he'll jump up and down. You can see the look on his little fucking face, man. Yeah. And he doesn't know the shit that I know. Not like in terms of like it's just, I've experienced pain.
When do you lose the childlike happiness shrieking moments of just pure joy? Like when you're that small, happiness to you is having your Goodwill remote in your Halloween pail with an empty water bottle. And then is it like society crashes into you and you're like, I need to consume to be happy. Like, obviously, that's a complex procedure that unbeknownst to a 9-year-old, I suppose. But I think it does happen because, like, have you ever, like, been around a kid and money is talked about? Or a kid starts to pick up really quick that money has value. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, because, like, if there's something they want and you say no, they say why? You say that costs money. They're like, well, what?
Well, I even remember, so, like, I was really little, probably like 4 or 5. I was obsessed with Cruella de Vil, which is probably really weird for like a vegan to say, although I do have black and white hair, so I mean, maybe her influence still resides in me. But they came out with this like beautiful like Cruella de Vil Barbie figurine, and it was probably like $60. And my parents were like, well, if you want this, you're going to be really good with chores, and like we'll save up for it, and like you will save up this much and mom and dad will save up this much, and then we'll go together and we'll purchase this doll together. And when we got to the counter, when it was time for me to give over my money, I refused and I started crying because it was like my money, and I made such a stink. My mom like bought it right then and there and then eventually took the money from me. But even at that young age, like I knew that this money had value, but I didn't understand that it had to be exchanged for goods. But I was willing to like scream and cry because I knew that money had value and I didn't want to give it up. And I was super young. So maybe from the moment you realize money has value, that's when shit starts. That's when the happiness starts eroding from just a shriek and a pail of Goodwill goods into money consuming.
I agree. Because you're being introduced to the way the world, the greater world works. Because when you're that little, you only know home.
True.
Like, how does home work? Like, okay, I have mom and dad, and perhaps you have a brother, sister, dog, cat, like whatever the case is. You gotta,
extended family, maybe.
Yeah. So, like, but the world, you can't have a family that's billions of people, like literally. But that's what the outside world is, and it's just kind of like, you have to kind of go outside. It's like a safe zone, it's like, it's like a safety bubble, when you're a kid. And definitely when you're introduced to the concept of money, because I'm trying to think about like when I was growing up, like, I kind of grew up. Okay. I experienced childhood when Pokemon cards were new.
Me too.
Like first edition holographic Charizard, which is now a $500 fucking card, and then everyone brought that to school and stole it. Like, there's probably like a couple bullies that are like in their 30s now,
true.
That have like just a drawer filled with bent up Charizards that they can use to buy a fucking car with, But
where'd you get all this money? Charizard holographic card they stole when I was 7.
Oh god, man, that was fucking massive. Because before, like, okay, the packaging that's called Tommy proof packaging?
No, what is Tommy proof packaging?
I guarantee you know what it is. It's that packaging you have to destroy to open. So, like, let's just say
like a clamshell.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just like plastic, and like you cut the plastic, and sometimes the plastic is so sharp that plastic cuts you. And
yes.
like, they didn't have that with Pokemon cards. They just had them loose on the fucking thing. So I remember, like, just going to Walmart. There'd just be empty packs everywhere.
I don't remember that. So when I started really being cognizant of Pokemon and liking it, I was probably about 6 or 7. And I just remember they were a big deal. And this is a stupid story, but I remembered that a friend in the neighborhood had lost a tooth. And I asked her if the tooth fairy brought her money, and she said, no, my tooth fairy brings me Pokemon cards. And I was enraged. I was like, I went home and like told my mom, like, Maria's tooth fairy gives her Pokemon cards. And my mom's like, well, your tooth fairy is giving you nickels, so deal with it.
Oh man, that reminds me of this story. Like when I don't know, I still think about this randomly, but my dad used to give me like money every Sunday to go walk down the street or ride my bike down the street to go to 7-Eleven, get the Sunday paper, and get myself a donut.
Oh, that's cute.
You know, so I did that. But then they started selling Pokemon cards. So, it was like $3 for a pack. So I still got the newspaper and shit. But he always wanted me to give him back his change. So I came home one day. I bought a pack of Pokemon cards, and I opened it up, and I got a holographic Jolteon. And I was like, this is... Look, oh my god! Like I was like shaking, like in like this nervous sweat, like just driving home, like thinking like I had a bag filled with $50,000. Then I came home
in your little mind.
Oh god, dude, I was the richest fucking boy on that street. And then my dad asked for the money back, and I said, "Oh, I got a Jolteon." He's like, "Brent," like, and like we argued, and
really?
Then yeah, I mean, I was like probably 9 or 10, and then he's like, Dad was like, if I give you this money, you have to give me back the change. I'm not giving it to you to buy Pokemon cards. You want to buy a donut or candy? That's fine. Like one candy bar, that's fine, but don't buy fucking Pokemon. And then I was just like, but I got a Jolteon. It's holographic. And he's like, I don't give a shit. And I was just like, oh man. So I didn't. I knew it, like, with money, at least in that case, like, it comes with a certain amount of trust. Because you have to earn your money honestly.
Well, you don't have to, but you should.
Well, I couldn't rob a bank and then go to Arby's with it after. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
like,
not at the age of 9, and you were on a bike. Right. Logistically, that just doesn't work.
Right. But, like, my dad trusted me enough with money to do that. And I've learned over the years that money is, like, a physical representation of trust. Because have you ever just owed someone money?
I'm in debt for student debt, so yeah, like that's probably the biggest example of me owing someone money.
Or like a friend, or like let's just say like your parents, or like have you ever just like, okay, like I'll pay you back $20 next week, kind of shit.
Yeah, like probably the biggest example is growing up, we'd buy concert tickets, and like one person would buy like the 5 tickets for the 5 of us, and then it was understood like you had to pay that person back, obviously. So that's probably like the best example.
Yeah, but then when somebody doesn't pay you back money they said they were going to, they're a piece of shit.
Oh my god. Oh, there was like one girl in our like kind of friend group who like didn't pay back, and then she was kind of ostracized from like she's not going to any more shows because she would not pay back the person who bought the tickets.
Yeah, hey, I mean, I've been a piece of shit in this situation too, where I just, I still owe people some money, and a lot of it too. So, but I'm trying to get my life together this year.
Yeah, well,
to do so.
It's a better year for you already. We talked about, it's a better start already for you. And I think the real can bring back to capitalism, the idea that money buys you happiness. People will tell you money does not buy you happiness, but what do their actions and their lives say?
Yeah, especially around Christmas time. It's this trick because you want to buy something for somebody to make them happy. So it's this weird loophole that in order to do that, you have to buy them something.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that like, I'm trying to think of like all not all to think about quantity, but I'm thinking of the things that I was gifted for Christmas. And do those items bring me happiness? And I think they like, some of them bring like, temporary joy. I don't know. They do, like, I enjoy the things that I received and I like them. I don't know. Because happiness is such a big word. I'm hesitating to say all those objects brought me happiness. You know what I mean? Because again, for me, happiness comes from creating art with you, creating art with other people, being with people I love, like bringing me back to that moment of like, my dog's gonna die. And this being has brought me so much joy and happiness that I don't want to live a day where I can't rely on the happiness and joy that he brings me.
That makes a lot of sense, dude. You know, and like that kind of happiness, that's it reminds me of this term, like, you know, like shelf life versus like the extension of shelf life. So like the shelf life of like food, you know, like you buy milk. Like, you can't keep that milk in your fridge for 2 years.
No. Well, I mean, you can. Should you?
It won't be fresh.
Yes.
Definitely
not.
It
will not be ingestible.
It'll be really chunky, and it'll probably cause you drizzling shits after 3 weeks if you drink it. But yeah, but like with people and memories and shit, man, like you hold on to that forever, because I think in many ways those help shape who we are. Mm-hmm. You know, like, so it's kind of, we're in a way choosing that, and it's being reciprocated. Like a movie can't, like a video game can't reciprocate me. You know what I'm saying? Like the movie's not like, hey, thanks for fucking watching me. You know, you just watch it, or, you know, but it's art. So it's, you know, it's mind expanding. But, you know, like when you love somebody and like, you know how to, you know, show that you do in a certain way. Like, let's just say you make them something, or maybe you buy something for them that they really wanted. You know, that's just kind of an act into that. But I've never been in a situation where somebody said, oh, you didn't buy this for me, you're not a good friend, or like, you don't really love me because you didn't buy this for me. You know, if anything, I feel really guilty sometimes, like when I don't buy like my friends and family gifts, you know, because, you know, like especially with Christmas, I've been out of work for over a month now, and I really couldn't buy anybody anything.
Yeah. Well, and I've been in situations where I have never been told, like, you don't love me, you didn't buy me this. I have been in situations where people, I suppose, had expectations that I didn't uphold with, like, gift giving. Like, a context where I thought that I was giving enough gifts to the right people, but then apparently I wasn't. And I'm being really vague about it intentionally because it's a gross situation I want to talk about. But, so it's very rare that I'm confronted with you're a bad friend because you didn't buy me this or whatever. I think, again, the idea that money or objects buy you happiness, it's just a bill of goods sold to try to keep you in the workforce and spinning the economy. I really think that's what it is. And it's consumerism, it's capitalism. It's unfortunately foolhardy. And I think the sad thing is that, like, especially if you are working so hard, and if you're on that hamster wheel just going, you don't really have time to stop and think about the fucking rat race that you're subjecting yourself to, and that maybe you don't want to be a part of it. Because if you're on the bottom, like, you don't even have that time and breadth to think about that maybe this is not making me happy. You're just trying to think about, okay, well, I gotta get this covered and this covered and this covered. You're thinking about covering your bases. You're not thinking about actively being happy. It's almost like maybe you play that mental game with yourself of like, once this is situated, once I own this, then I can focus on happiness. That thought process is really prevalent with people who are like dieting or trying to change their bodies. Like on Instagram, there'll be posts about, you know, people saying that, you know, I'll be happy when I lose 25 pounds. And the problem is that's a trap, because inevitably you have to, you can lose the 25 pounds. You can lose 50 pounds. There's gonna be days where you feel like a piece of shit and like you're the same, it is the same body, but like you made no quote unquote progress. No change occurred. And so that kind of brings us back to that idea of finding contentness and happiness with where you are in that moment and trusting that's as it should be. But at the same time, you can't just tell yourself when X happens, then I'll be happy, because it doesn't work like that.
No, definitely not, because you set yourself up to where it's like winning American Idol, you know, where if you were winning the reality TV show, like, because it's just, you win the TV show and you feel fulfilled because the show is over and you came out on top of it. But then what happens after that? Yeah. You know, so it's kind of, well, on a much smaller scale. So if you want to be happy losing 25 pounds, I guess you'd have to be happy with the fact that you were determined enough to do that, as opposed to seeing the number on the scale. But I can understand the mindset, because, you know, it just really depends on like what would make someone feel fulfilled, happy, and like the positive emotion.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree.
Because I'll be honest, I would feel happier if I weighed 100 pounds less, only because my body is kicking my ass.
Well, so like you would feel happier to be in a healthier state. Yeah. But I think you're right in saying that you should focus on the fact that, like, I'm happy that I had so much drive and intrinsic motivation. And when that leveled off, I still had my drive to push me to go and create a healthier body. Or work, I should say, not create a healthier body, but work with the body I have to be healthier. And I totally get that. How are you doing, by the way? You said your body's kicking your ass. You're still healing and recovering?
I am. You know, I've tried to eat better, like, throughout the past 2 weeks, like, with the new year. Mm-hmm. And, like, even this morning.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm alright. Just phlegm. But, even this morning for breakfast, I had this fucking power smoothie, you know, so it was orange juice with pulp, 2 bananas, a light Greek yogurt with cherry chunks in it, a bottle of raspberry kefir,
wow,
frozen blueberries, frozen blackberries, frozen strawberries, squirt of lime or lemon juice. And then, you know, I always feel great after I, you know, take that stuff. So
yeah, no, good for you, man. Also, good for you. That's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, thanks. You know, it's really hard because I'm so used to eating like bad shit, but I'm going to try to get better because I just really I want to run again. I want to be able to like tie my shoes without fucking holding my breath and almost passing out. You know, it's just like, even like recovering, like the incisions on my gut have been made worse because of my weight. Mm-hmm. So I need to lose weight for a practical reason, not to like get chicks and shit. And besides, I'm at the point now where if I lost 100 pounds, there'd be like so much skin hanging and shit. But, you know, I don't want to feel like I'm dying just from doing mundane shit. But, you know, it's a process, man. But, kind of leads me to the question that we left on our last podcast. So is it possible to have happiness without some sort of vulnerability?
Well, I think if happiness is opening yourself up to relationships with people and like having a relationship with someone, opening yourself up to that and being vulnerable to the person, sure. If your happiness is monetary and things and stuff like that, which you and I don't really like agree with, but if that is your happiness, then I don't think you need to be vulnerable. If it's all consuming, you don't need to be vulnerable. If it has to do with people, then you have to be vulnerable.
Yeah, it's craziness, like, crazy. It's not really crazy, but this really is, you know, all the best shit in life involves other people in some way. Like, especially like with love. I mean, you could have self-love, that's great, but, you know, like Tom Hanks in Castaway wanted to get the fuck off that island for a reason, even though he had a volleyball. But, yeah, dude, people make the best out of life, man. You know, like my best Christmas present, you know, I got some decent shit for Christmas, but it was New Year's and I texted my friend just like how much, you know, she meant to me. And then she like responded back and like left like a longer message. And like I was really touched when I first read it, but then I read it out loud and I was fucking crying.
Oh, that's so sweet.
You know, it's just like when you know that you mean a lot to somebody, you're like, that's just like, that's the greatest fucking feeling. And, you know, just having those people in my life, like it'll be a lot easier to get to happiness.
Yeah. I think as a teacher, like what makes me happy, it's hard being a teacher because teenagers are in such a roller coaster of their life and you see them day to day and you see that roller coaster and you see their highs and their lows. But what makes it all worth it is when you get those thank you notes and not necessarily gifts, but like this week I received a letter from a student I had last semester. I don't have her anymore, but she wrote me a letter to give me on the last day of class. And it was about how she felt belonging like in my classroom and how much it meant to her. And so that's what brings me probably the most happiness and joy. And especially something like teaching, the seeds that you are planting, you don't get to see them grow or you don't get to sow them until like weeks, half a year goes by, and then you can see it finally. But until then, you're kind of in the trenches. So I do agree, though. I think that when you know that you mean something to somebody, that brings a lot of happiness and joy.
What would you, like right now at this stage in your life, need to not necessarily be happy now, but in order, like, you know that you need these ingredients to make the recipe of happiness for yourself?
Yeah, it would definitely be being creative, creating art with you and other people. That's the main thing. I think also taking care of myself and self-care. I feel like it's really hard for me to talk about happiness because it's like, I don't think I've been in a happy space for a very long time. You opened up kind of talking about like 2017 was like the most miserable fucking year for you. I don't think I've been in a happy place for maybe since like a sophomore, junior in undergrad. That's a long fucking time. And it's easy. Like, I felt like it was so easy to talk about the dark shit, like vulnerability.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But like now I'm like really struggling to be like, oh fuck, what would make me happy?
Yeah, I mean, I would rather talk about like just the shit that people would shy away from had you mentioned it in public. You know, but happiness, it's such a new thing. It's like if I read 2 pages of the Bible and I called myself a devout Christian.
Yeah.
You know, I just don't know. I don't know how to be happy. I know how to be miserable.
Yeah, because you have a lot of experience with it.
Oh my God. Like, especially like 2014. Like, 2014 was the year the most bad shit happened. 2017 was where I felt the worst.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, oh my God, it's so fucking bad. And then it's been like this for about 5 years, ever since depression came into my life. Man, like just real crippling depression. It's just been really fucked up. But you know, I started drinking kefir, you know, and I've been feeling okay. And you know, just being in the hospital, you know, it was weird because I think sounds so fucking selfish to say, but I finally felt like I was being treated the way I was feeling mentally before that happened.
Ouch.
So, like, for instance, like, when, you know, like, when you would tell somebody, like, yeah, man, I'm thinking about killing myself. I just don't kill you. Don't do that. But you're like, hey, I'm in surgery. Don't move. Let me help you out.
Let me come over. Let me feed you soup. Are you okay? What do you need? And I feel like that's kind of society's fault. Like, no one teaches you what to do when a friend tells you you're suicidal other than to say, I can't help you. I love you. Here's somebody you should talk to. It always has to be this, like, pushing. And I would imagine, like, having been in those spaces myself, I feel like I'm a burden when I open up to somebody about, like, yeah, I'm really depressed and anxious. And, like, I haven't actively thought about, like, killing myself ever. I've just, like, not been able to envision a future. And then I feel really bleak and, like, sad. But I've never plotted or had a plan to end my life, thank God. And I don't think I could ever do it. And my brain just died. I just lost that thought. I couldn't do that. I just was like bleak and whatever.
Yeah, let's hope you never get to that place, man. It's not fun. At least it's fucking life changing or life ending, you know. And it's just like, I really do feel people for, you know, who are just in that constant anguish.
Yeah, no, and this is where I was gonna go with the thought was like, even if I haven't been to that stage of like planning my death and me taking my own life, the periods of depression and anxiety I have experienced, when I do open up to people, I do feel like a burden because their response is, there's something wrong with you, you need help, go find help. And like, because it feels burdensome because it's like they can't help you. They have to push you to somebody else, which is fine because they don't have the tools of, you know, psychology or anything or therapy or something like that or social work. But at the same time, like, you just feel burdensome and it makes you not want to tell anybody even more. Because it's also, our society tells you if you're not happy, there's something wrong with you. Right? Or if you're not content, there's something wrong with you. When in fact, it should probably be, if you're happy all the time, if you're content all the time, something's fucking wrong with you. You need to shake up your life or do something. Like, you're not, you know, are you really growing? Are you pushing yourself? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Yeah. You know, let the roller coaster in. Like my teenagers, let the roller coaster in. This is your life. It kind of stables out when you're an adult, kinda-ish. I'll tell them when I'm 80, then I'll let them know. Yeah, they'll probably get it then. A lot of it's just probably just high school, because there's a lot of smart teenagers walking around. Well, there's a lot of wise teenagers walking around because I mean, they're at an age where they probably haven't learned or have been taught critical thinking skills. Well, yeah, and when you try to, it's so difficult because they haven't been primed with that throughout their whole lives. Like, you know, and it's also a maturity thing too. Like, just where you are developmentally, like, you know, your frontal cortex isn't developed. which is responsible for your like higher order thinking and reasoning abilities. That's why kids make decisions based off emotion, because their brain literally isn't functioning at the adult level. It's incapable of it sometimes. The drive to make decisions with the amygdala and your emotion center is too big to you can't just tell a kid act rationally, use your common sense, because they don't really have the brain capacity to at times.
Yeah, like you have like a 14-year-old, like, I'm going to drop out of high school and I'm going to get a good job. And it's like, is that the best option, like, for you right now? Like, is that the only reason? Well, no, I just don't like going.
Yeah, no, and I understand. I mean, high school, I wouldn't say, like, high school sucked. Like, no, high school didn't suck for me, but you have to, like, you're tiptoeing towards adulthood and owning all of your human faculties and being your own person, but instead you're forced to go to a place where a lot of times you're trivialized and you're treated like a child. And I was thinking about this the other day. It kind of teaches you to be complacent. Like the quote unquote good students are the ones that sit down and be quiet and follow all directions. And I feel really bad at times for, in my mind, getting angry at the kids who are more comfortable being like out of their seat and out of the box and questioning me, because they make my job harder, but ultimately they're doing what they need to do. Like, they're questioning and they're thinking, and I'm happy that they feel free to question me and like do that. Like, it's a safe space for them to do that. But it would make my job a hell of a lot easier if they just like accepted and were complacent. And I think a lot of teachers, I don't want to say a lot, but there are just teachers out there who just want complacent kids that they can dump knowledge into and have the kids regurgitate it onto a test and then that be done. And they call that teaching. Yeah.
It's a job. You know, some people, you could tell there's a difference between teachers and educators.
This is true. This is true.
Teachers, like, I've had a lot of teachers and I've had very few educators. I've remembered every single educator. The teachers I've had, if I look back on them, I'm like, why the fuck were you there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's so many teachers that are not where they should be. I've experienced them in every school I've taught in. You come across people that you're just like, why are you here? Or maybe like it's past your time and you're not willing to do the research or try to figure out what you're doing wrong to improve your practice. Why are you here?
Yeah, it's probably because they don't really have the other skills to back out. Like right now, I've been working at a college for 10 years. Mm-hmm. I don't have like extensive experience outside of an educational facility, but it's kind of easy for me to get stuck there.
For sure. And I'm happy you brought up college, because I think one issue that I have with colleges, and at least in like teaching programs, is they kind of spin it to you like teaching is gonna make you happy. You're giving back to society. You're helping young minds flourish and grow, and these young people develop who are going to inherit the earth when you perish. You get to be a part of their life and their experience, and it's kind of sold to you like that's going to make you happy. And I kind of feel not like I'm sold a bill of goods, because I think that's got too much of a like sadistic, bad, evil undertone to it. But the fact is that like at the end of the day, teaching is a profession. It's a job. It's a career. But that is all it is in the end. And to kind of bring it back to when my dog found out we had cancer, I was in the middle of student teaching, and I was like literally like, teaching is great. Teaching is awesome. But in the end, it means nothing. My love, my relationships, that's what matters more than anything.
I went to it really is true. I went to a Florence and the Machine concert a few years ago with my friend, and we got third row, or like in the pit. Like
awesome.
She was as close to me as I am to you right now. And
so like 6 feet, 6 to 7 feet.
Yeah, like literally, like, and it was the day after, or the night after the shooting at the nightclub in Florida.
Pulse, yeah.
Yeah, so, and she just had this message it was so fucking powerful, and you know, we were just all completely like just united in this like somber moment. And I can't remember how she said it. I wish I would have written it down, but it was just like saying something along the lines like, you have to be love. Yeah. And ever since I like learned that, you know, or ever since I heard that, you know, despite that, you know, just having some of the worst personal feelings in my life this past year, like I really want to try to fucking be that, to be love, you know, to actually not have my consciousness and my body disembodied, like to actually live and to believe the things that I, trust in myself and that I believe in, and to like live properly and to be fucking love, man, because there's nothing better than that shit. And if you don't, I mean, you could feel content without love, but I don't know if you could feel happy without love.
I agree. And I think that like what drew me to teaching, in addition to like having that impact, was what I've grown to maybe learn is that teaching is an act of love and care. And that's probably it's one of the most draining aspects of it, but it's also the most rewarding.
It definitely is, because, you're working with those kids, and, like you said, like they give you, you probably won't know in the moment how much of an impact you're making until maybe down the line. And you just have this collective, like, okay, I touched 30 kids' lives. Fuck, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that there's definitely like mentors in my life who get a lot of happiness and joy out of the impact they have on teenagers' lives and helping these kids grow and flourish. And I'm there, but I also know there's other things that I need for myself to make me happy. Like I know that if I was, because you're talking about the ingredients of happiness, I know that if I taught for the rest of my life, but I never created anything, I never made art ever again, I didn't record music, I would be left with nothing. I'd be a shell. I'd be a teacher and nothing more. But I know that's not me.
Yeah. That, that kind of leads us to our overall grand purpose in life, which also happens to be the topic for our next podcast.
Yes, niches.
And our purposes. So, well, that will be all for today. We just did about an hour of podcasting, but we want to thank you guys for listening, and take care and be good to each other.
Bye. Take care.